Hello, everyone. My name is Courtney Pollock, and I'm the Customer Marketing Coordinator for SWK Technologies. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Payroll Year-End and 1099 Processing Procedures in Sage 100, presented by Monica Boyer. So before we get started, I want to go over just a few housekeeping items. Everyone has been placed on mute to keep the background noise to a minimum. However, throughout the webinar, you can submit any questions you have. If you have a question, look for the questions section in your GoToWebinar panel, and we're going to answer all those questions at the end of the presentation. In your GoToWebinar, you also have the option to change the presentation layout. So if you need to zoom in to the presentation at all, you can do so if you're having a problem seeing anything. And then we're also recording this presentation, and it will be distributed tomorrow to all attendees, as well as those who registered but were unable to attend today. And as always, we have a short poll at the end of our webinar. So if you in the webinar and you have some questions, you need help with anything, you want someone to reach out, you can let us know in that poll, and we'll make sure someone gets in contact with you about the things we discussed today. So with that said, we're thrilled that you've taken some time out of your busy day to be with us on this session. SWK is here to help you fulfill your vision of a smarter and easier way to run your business by providing with tools, support, software, and industry knowledge whenever you need it. So that's all from me. I'm going to hand it over to Monica for the main event.
Thanks, Courtney. Hi, everybody. I can't believe it's that time of year already. Here we are at the end of the year getting ready to do our 1099s and W-2s. We're going to talk today about how to do those things in Sage 100. I have a few slides to share with you, but most of the time is going to be spent in the software so I can show you exactly how everything works. And I'm going to give you some resources, places that you can find some help as well if you need some. And of course, as Courtney said, you can get help through this webinar. You can reach out to your Sage 100 consultant or customer account manager here at SWK. However you need to reach out to get the help you need, please feel free. All right, so here's some key information for this year for Sage 100 and doing your W-2s and 1099s. The IRD, the interim release download, I know that our help desk will be reaching out to clients to talk about getting that IRD installed as soon as it's released from Sage, which should be pretty soon. And the interim release download for 2024 is compatible with versions 2022, 2023, and 2024. Sage 100 Payroll, there's going to be a new version of Sage 100 Payroll 2.25.0. and it's only going to be compatible with Sage 100 version 2021 or later, and that payroll update is to be released this month. Accounts payable 1099s. So there have been some changes there related to the Atrix software that you run your 1099s with. So Sage 100 2024.1 and 2023.4 have had the 1099 name parsed into the first, middle, and last names in vendor maintenance. The reason for that is because Atrix needs it when it prints those 1099s. So unfortunately, if you're not on one of those updates, 2024.1 or 2023.4, they will not have that 1099 name parsed, and it'll need to be manually adjusted in that Atrix grid. And I'll show you that Atrix grid in a little while so that you can see where that happens. And I'll also show you where the fields are. I'm working today on 2024.1, so I'll show you where those fields are. Those parsed fields are and where they aren't if you don't have it, I guess. Down at the bottom is a resource I'm going to show you today. It's Sage's year-end page. There's tons of information there. So we're going to look at it live in a couple minutes so that I can show you how you can find any resources that you need. Of course, you will need forms for your 1099s. A lot of the 1099s can be printed on plain paper. But it is nice to have the 4-up perforated page so that when you do your 1099s or W-2s, you can have them perforated so that they can be separated apart easily. So Sage has a tax form site. I listed that here, and I know that Courtney's going to be sending out the documentation, so you'll have that. But there's a nice tax form site there. And then if you want to order your forms through Sage Checks, there's a website, www.sagechecks.com. You'll see it. There's a little screenshot of it there. And you can choose by tax forms and business forms at the top in the middle there. And then you can choose Sage 100 on the left, and it'll show you all the various forms that are available for Sage 100. And of course, if you have any questions on which forms you need to get, please let us know. So when you're doing 1099s or W-2s, there's data that needs to be verified. You want to make sure that those are going to be accurate tax forms. So in accounts payable, we do some data verification, and usually we will, make sure your information in company maintenance is accurate. So in Library Master Main, company maintenance for your company, there's addresses, and then on the second tab, which I'll show you in a few minutes, there's some additional information that's related and used by the 1099 program or Atrix for 1099s or W-2s. So you want to have that up to date. Otherwise, you have to enter that information manually into Atrix when you run your forms. You'll also want to check your 1099 year and AP options. So that's under AP setup, accounts payable options. And in there on the main page, you'll see your 1099 year there. So you'll want to make sure that that's set at 2024 in order to do your 1099s for this year. And then, of course, you'll want to verify your 1099 data in vendor maintenance. So you can go through vendor maintenance and you can look at the data for your 1099 vendors, which might be useful if you only have a few. But if you have a lot, there is also, you could also use the payment history report. You can run that by 1099 vendors only. You'll see in my screenshot on the left there. So you can say print 1099 vendors only, and you can get a little totals that way to make sure that when you run your 1099s, they're accurate. Oh, also, if they aren't accurate for some reason, you can fix that data in vendor maintenance, providing you have security access to do so. And I'll show you that in a little while as well. So we do the same thing for payroll, right? We want to verify the data. Typically, you'll be verifying data throughout the year, with payroll especially, but the following reports can be used to verify your W-2 data. You can use a quarterly tax report and a check history report for the entire year. You can run that check history report for the entire year. It tries to go by period, but you can change it to date, and you can run it for the entire year. And then you can have those reports in hand when you run those. Sage provides this little payroll workflow to kind of identify what needs to be done and what needs to happen when. So of course, you're going to process your last payroll of the year, print your reports, print your checks, update that check register and daily transaction register, print and reconcile your quarterly reports. And then we can do our print and e-file our quarterly 941s, et cetera, our W-2s. And then Sage recommends making a backup at that point in time of the company. I usually make a backup of the entire company, perform your period end processing, run any payroll tax updates that are available. You know now if you're using payroll in the newer versions that you'll be prompted when a payroll update is available to install that. And then it's always a good idea to run that payroll status check utility after you install an update. That's under, I think, payroll setup or payroll utilities, sorry. So you'll run that just to make sure that everything is good as far as setup is concerned in your payroll module. So Sage also provides this information about order of events. So this is very similar to that workflow I just showed you, just shows it in a different way. So I wanted to include it as well. So in your old year, you're going to do your time entry, process your payroll before you close the year and before you download your update and update your taxes. And then you'll install your year-end release. So that's that interim release download, generate your year-end forms and make a backup, download and update your taxes, and then you can start entering in the new year. You can enter in the new year time entry even before you close that previous year. And then in the new year, you'll process that next payroll. So here's that link again for more information. And let's run through processing those 1099s and W-2s in Sage 100 now. So I'm in Sage 100 2024.1, and I just want to show you a couple things in here. I'm in my accounts payable company right now, so we're going to go through that first. So I'm going to go into vendor maintenance and show you those new parsed fields that we have. So let me pull up one of my 1099 vendors, Touch Electric Supplies. When I go to the additional tab, you'll see here that I have the name split out, first name, middle name, last name. So Atrix is in need of that now. And if you don't have this update, when you run Atrix for your 1099s, it's going to walk you through and let you know that you need to add that information for your 1099 individuals. Now, I'm going to go to another vendor that is not 1099 just to show you a couple things. So those fields will not be here at the bottom. If you choose business, you'll see it'll just have 1099 name. So a business may have a different name than what you have as your vendor name that needs to be reported on the 1099s. So if that's the case, you would record that name in this 1099 name field. Sage is also letting you now include a taxpayer ID. This is just a little aside. Even if you're not using, even if you keep the form as none, you're not going to issue a 1099. So if for some reason you wanted to record a vendor's taxpayer ID but not print a 1099, you could do so. I'm going to go back to my other vendor, my touch vendor, and just show you the 1099 history screen. So if you run your reporting and something is not accurate, you can go into this 1099 history screen at the bottom, make sure that you're on the correct form and the correct year, and you can verify your data. So this data can be changed. If I was like, oh, wait, we probably forgot to mark an invoice 1099, or we unchecked an invoice from being 1099 and we missed it, our total should be 125,833.65 for this vendor, then we can change that here as long as we have security access to do so. And then we can change that to reconcile our 1099s. So when we want to run our 1099s, we're going to go to Accounts Payable, Reports, and we're going to go to Form 1099 Tax Reporting. Now, when you run the tax reporting, for those of you that may not know, this is going to go out to Atrix, which is a service that Sage has included with Sage 100. And it's going to go out to Atrix, and it's going to walk you through processing those forms. Obviously, it requires that you have an internet connection. It requires that you have your customer number and all of that with Sage 100, that you have a licensed version. So up here at the top, we're going to choose our form. So I'm going to choose non-employee compensation. There is a box over here on the right where we can put our minimum year-to-dates. So if there's a minimum amount, I don't know if it's still 600 this year, you would put in the minimum 1099 amount there. Then I can run it for my vendor. So I can say accept here, and it's going to walk me through the process. Now, I did tell you before we started that you will need to have information filled out in company maintenance. So I'm just going to hop in there real quick to show you. So the company, there is information that is used by Atrix in company maintenance, and it's the address on this page and phone number if you want to put a phone number in there. And then also on the additional tab, this information is used as well. So if you don't have a federal ID number in here, it'll prompt you to put one in. This trade name can be, if you're operating under a different name than your company name in Sage 100, you can put a trade name in here. And then, of course, contact information is required on the tax forms as well. So if it's in here already in company maintenance, then you don't have to enter it on the screens, and I'll show you where that is. So when we go into the 1099 setup wizard, there's a couple things we can do. We can test drive our 1099s with 25 recipients. We can test drive the 1099s with all of your recipients. So a test drive means I'm practicing, I'm not doing it for real, I'm not really printing them. So you can run through those anytime you want, and it doesn't save like a historical record that you printed those 1099s. I'm going to just say I'm going to process them right now so that I can show you the history piece of it. But that you can certainly walk through and test those, and it looks exactly the same. It just doesn't record the historical that you printed it. All right, so get started printing with your 1099s. The TIN number that comes in from company maintenance that we just looked at. Wants to know if you use multiple 1099 data files, like if you're using multiple companies in Sage 100 or not. If you were combining information from multiple companies, you can put yes here, and it'll prompt you to find, to let them know what companies you need to pull data from, and it'll pull the appropriate data. So I'm going to say no, I'm using a single one at this time. This information comes over, my contact name, my contact phone number, all of that came over from company maintenance. If it wasn't here, if the address wasn't here, if my name and phone number wasn't here, it would prompt you to put that information in. So you wouldn't be able to hit next there. It would give you an error message saying that that information is required. What type are you? So are you filing for your company employer? A lot of times in Sage 100 users are, or if you're a third-party tax preparer filing for the company. When I say next, which type of filer are you? I do not use a transfer agent, or I use a transfer agent. So I'm going to say I do not use a transfer agent. If I have any state tax, I can add state tax items in here. Not real common with 1099s, but if you do, you can add your state information in here. So if I click add, it'll ask for my state, what withholding, and then I would have to put in my account number there. If there's any special state or local tax items, I can add those as well. Now, if in your 1099 setup there, it's recognized that one of those is needed based on the address of the vendor or those kinds of things, they will populate in here and you'll have to fill in that information, but you can add them as well. And then I'm going to click next. Do you have any recipients who elected to only receive 1099 forms electronically? You can say yes or no here. And then how do you want your recipient identification numbers to print? Most people are going to print them with some sort of truncation so that the social security numbers and tax ID numbers are not listed on the forms fully. And then we're going to click next. So now it's going to open the Atrix screen. And the Atrix screen is kind of like a grid if you haven't seen it before. It's a grid that allows us to look over our 1099 information, verify it to those reports we talked about, make sure everything looks okay, make sure our totals are okay, make sure that information is complete. So once this loads, you'll see that it's going to kind of walk us through the data. So this is new. I noticed this is new this year, that it's giving you some keys here, make sure you review and edit, print a copy, about submitting reports. So I'm just going to say, okay. So when you go in here, what's highlighted in blue is what it is asking you to verify right now. So you see up at the top, it says verify recipient taxpayer identification numbers, and they're highlighted in blue so that I can look at them and make sure that they're okay. Right here is where the name is split out for the vendor. If you don't have the later product updates or the later versions of Sage 100, it won't be split out here. It'll all be in one field, and you'll have to split that out before printing your 1099s, or they won't print properly. So I'm going to say next. And you'll notice here that if there's anything that I don't have that is needed, it will prompt me to fill that in. So you'll see that it highlighted in a couple fields in red. So it said my matching TINs are detected. If the two TINs match, regardless of the formatting, blah, 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 all that stuff about what the hours were. So I have to go back and correct. So it's looking for my recipient account number, and I'm just going to put something in here. And I'm going to put something in this field to move past to. All right, so now we're going to say next. Check if recipient's TIN is an FEIN. So there's a checkbox over here that would be checked if it's an FEIN number. And that happens when you put it in. That comes over automatically from Sage 100, so you don't really have to worry about that one, whether it's a business or an individual. Now it wants us to verify the recipient's names. So you'll see one of them is an individual, so that's why there's an individual name, and then my company names are over here, and I'm going to click next. Verify recipients' addresses. So we want to make sure our addresses are okay, so we can verify those here, make sure they all look good, and click next. Verify all the income boxes. So of course here we can kind of verify the vendors and what their numbers are and what they can be. You can change information in here, by the way. So if I needed to change the address or I needed to change the amount, just please keep in mind that when you change those amounts or any fields in here, it does not write back those changes to Sage. So it's in Atrix only. So if it was, let's say you changed an address because you realized it was a mistake or there was an error in the address, you could go back, you would have to go back to Sage 100 and fix it in the vendor as well. When I click next here, it'll ask me to verify the state, make sure that's correct. I'm going to click next again, verify the amount of income tax withheld. Most times in 1099s, we're not withholding income tax. So there's nothing there, and that's fine if you don't do that. This is your final opportunity to review or edit employee detail for the upcoming reports. You certainly can restart 1099s, so don't feel like you ever did them and it's final. You can edit them. You can totally disregard them and restart. You can do pretty much anything that you need to do. So I'm going to say agree, and then it's going to take me to my reporting. So Atrix offers this service through Sage 100. They will e-file for you if you want them to. So if I click next, we're going to see our options. So for example, I have 3 recipients. To print and mail my recipient copies, it would cost $2.80. And to E1099 the recipient copies, I'm not doing that, but I could. It would be $1.30 per recipient. And then you'll see if I go down further, it's $27.99 for the total thing with the whole list of things it'll do for me. Atrix always offers a free option. So if you come in here and there's money here and you're not looking to e-file anything or have them do anything special, you just want to print everything, you can uncheck that and go to other options. When you're on other options, you can print your recipient 1099 copies, and you can also e-file them, e-file the 1099s and 1096s, which there is a charge for. But if you uncheck everything and just print those things, there's no charge at the bottom. So if you want to e-file and you choose to e-file in this case, or any of the e-file options, when you click next, it'll prompt you to either set up an Atrix account or log into your current Atrix account and make sure that there's payment info on file so it can charge the card for the payment. So we're going to click next. Of course, if you don't take them up on their service, they're going to try to sell it to you again on this screen and say, please, you should probably have them mailed automatically. You can have them filed automatically, etc. So you can go back and change your options if you wanted. So based on my selections, I'm going to print everything. So I'm going to say next, and it'll bring up the screen again, and it's going to show us our reports and walk us through all of the available reports for 1099 processing. One thing I should mention while this is loading is Sage 100 e-filing is a separate install rather than, in addition to the Sage 100 workstation setup. So if for some reason you try to run 1099 reporting and it won't run, it tells you it's not installed, it's because it is a separate install. We can install it for you or guide you how to install it. So you'll see here that it comes up, report 1 of 5 is my federal 1099 NECs. So this is the form I would send to the government. And then if I say next step, I'm not going to print them right now, but you could certainly print them. And then it's going to load the next report, which is my federal 1096 form. So there's my federal 1096 form that I would send in or e-file. And then when I click next, I'm not going to print this. I'm just going to look at them just so that we can walk through them and see them all. Another thing to note, if you have to do multiple types of 1099s, you'll be doing this process more than once. So right now we're doing the 1099 NEC, but if you need to do like a miscellaneous or rents or royalties, those kinds of things, you'll be running those separately, as a separate run. So here is our recipient 1099. So you'll notice that there's 4 copies of the same 1099. This is where that perforated paper comes in handy that you can buy. And then we're going to click next step. This is our payer 1099. So this is our copy of our 1099s. It's only 1 page, you'll notice at the top, because for us, it's going to print 1 in each of the boxes. And then I'm going to hit next step. And then there's instructions. So the 1099 instructions would typically be printed on the back of the vendor's 1099s. I have seen people print them separately and send them along with it, but this will also print those instructions. The fun part is figuring out how you put your paper in your printer, right? All right, so that's it. That was our 1099 reporting. If we were to go back into our 1099 reporting, it's going to note that we have already processed 1099. So you'll see this here. So if I were to go back in again, here's my options of my histories with my history. So it's recording the history that I printed those and prepared those. So it would save that information, especially if I changed anything in there, it would save that. And here's my available actions on the right-hand side. I can correct completed 1099. So I printed them all and sent them off to my vendors and everything was filed and I have to correct them. We can correct them. We can e-file or print incomplete ones. So that would be our case. Like we didn't really finish them. We didn't print them. So we would go back into there. We can reprint completed 1099. So we've already done it. They were e-filed or printed and sent, and we just want to reprint them. We can do that. Or we can start over. So if we didn't want it to remember the history, we would just say start over and we would go through the process again. And we would be starting from scratch with that option. After you're done with your 1099s for the year, it'll ask if you want to increment the default 1099 calendar year field in the accounts payable options window. So right now it's set at 2024, and if I say yes here, that would move it to 2025 so that I'm ready for next year when it's time to run. So typically you're only going to say yes to this option when you're completely done with your 1099s, you've e-filed them or mailed them or whatever, or you're going to mail them, then you can say yes here. So I'm going to say no now so that I can go back and reprint them if I wanted to. All right, so I'm going to switch to a different company for payroll, and we'll do a little same walkthrough of payroll. So this is my payroll company, and when you're in payroll, your W-2s are done in the period end menu and not the reports menu. There's federal and state tax reporting. One thing to note is that this demo data in this payroll company is in 2023, so I will get an error message saying that, oh, it's 2024, but you're trying to print 2023. We're just going to disregard that just because it's demo data. But you shouldn't see that message, obviously. You should be on 2024 when you're printing on the 2024 forms. One thing I didn't talk about before, but when you first go into Atrix, if you don't get to this screen right away, it'll come up with an update. So typically every year, and even a couple times towards the end of the year, Atrix will push out updates to forms based on what the government has provided them to update. And if that happens, you'll get a prompt that those forms need to be updated. So usually there's an option for automatic update, manual update, and there's a third one, I can't remember what it is, but you're going to want to choose that automatic update, let it update everything, and then it'll take you to this screen. So when we get to this screen, we're going to choose what form type we're printing, whether we're doing federal, state, or existing reports. So existing reports would be W-2s that I already printed and already recorded. So I'm going to say we're doing federal, and you're going to notice I have 2023 here, so I'm just going to do my 2023. You'll notice that based on where you are, there are some different forms if you're in certain areas, Guam, American Samoa, or the Virgin Islands. So you'll want to make sure to choose the appropriate W-2 report. So I'm going to say select. It'll come up with your year and quarter in payroll. It should be obviously 2024 quarter 4 because you'll be done with the year. But this is just demo data, so I'm not going to worry about it. And then if there's any kind of employer that you need to note on those W-2s, you can check that if you're tax exempt or your state and local government, etc. I'm going to say none apply for this one. This information, this payroll to demo address and everything comes from company maintenance. So if that's not filled in company maintenance, then you'll have to fill it in when you come in here. I'm going to choose specific employee numbers because I just happen to know which employee numbers have the detailed information. But you'll probably do them for all. I'm just doing this for time's sake. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're just going to do it for 3 employees right now. That's just a little tip. If you have not used that in selection screens, you can select multiple items with a comma in between. A lot of people don't know that about Sage when you're running reports and things. In any of these selection areas, I can just type in with commas in between, no spaces, and it'll pull in all of those 3, employees that I put in there or whatever the case may be. So now it's going to say it's processing my employees. It's kind of doing the same thing as the 1099 did. It's gathering all that information from Sage 100, pulling it over into the Atrix platform. This is the message I get because I'm actually in 2023 and I should be 2024. So I'm just going to say continue. You won't get that because you should be in the same year that you're running 1099s for. So here, just like the 1099 wizard, we get a W-2 setup wizard. Same options. You can test drive your W-2s or you can begin processing them. We're going to process them for these employees. My FEIN comes over from company maintenance, library master main, company maintenance. And then am I using multiple payroll data files from multiple companies in Sage 100 or just one? It's not common to use multiple, but I have seen a case or two. This information, especially the contact information down at the bottom, comes over from company maintenance. So if you had not put that in, you would have to type it in here. I'm filing for my company or employer, or I'm a third-party filer, whichever is the case. I'm going to say next. Now this particular company, and I left this in here so that you could see it, but there's some state tax forms that I have to provide them for Michigan in this case. And it looks like my Michigan tax ID number was not correct. So I can correct it here. So if something is not correct, it runs it through its little wizard and it will let you know if something is not correct. And that it will be in red. So now you'll see all my states are no longer in red. So that means I'm good to go. I can add states if need be as well. So I'm going to say next, special state or local tax items if there are any. And then it's telling me that certain things have no requirements, and that's fine. So it's not going to display on the W-2s, and that is totally fine. All right. Do you have employees who are exempt from any part of Medicare or Social Security taxes? So if you do, you would click yes, and then you would be able to answer the question below. Otherwise, you click no. Do you have any employees who are members of the clergy? Do you want to use control numbers on your W-2? So if you choose to use control numbers, it'll put a control number on there. If not, it won't. We can leave that on. Do you have any employees who elected to only receive W-2 forms electronically? You can say yes or no to that too. So W-3 information. So what kind of payer am I? I'm a 941 payer. So you could choose which type of payer you are. If you have third-party sick pay, you can put that in there. If you have an establishment number or another EIN used this year, you could put those in as well. The next is, do I want to truncate my social security numbers and how do I want that to happen? And then it's going to load that grid for me. This is the same as the 1099s. It's going to walk us through how, what we need to check, what fields we need to verify before we print those W-2s and other forms. So we'll just give it a minute here to create it. All right, here's our warning. Review and edit, print a copy before you submit anything. And we're going to go through the same thing that we did with 1099s. So at the top, verify employee information. So basically, it wants me to verify everything that's in blue. Obviously, if it's correct in Sage, it should be correct in here as well. I'm going to say next. Verify additional employee information. So is there anything third-party sick pay? This one is electronic W-2. If there were statutory employer or a retirement plan, we could have any of those boxes checked. When we say next, verify federal information. So here's my federal wages. I could verify that against my quarterly tax reports or my check history report. When I say next, I'm going to want to verify my state information. So we pay in California and Michigan. So these are the state information for these employees. When I say next, verify unassigned columns. So if there's any columns in here that we did not verify before, we can. One thing that's nice that they've added is totals. So you'll see at the top there's totals now. Previously there weren't totals, but it's nice to be able to see the totals to compare those against your reports as well. And then we're going to say next. This is your final opportunity to review or edit employee detail for upcoming reports. So I'm going to agree to that. If you said check, you could just go back there and change anything that needed to be changed. So here's our options for e-filing our W-2s. Remember, you can always print them for free, and then the e-filing amount will show here. If I were to stay on e-filing and I click next, it will ask you for some different information. Do you want a PDF? You know, and this is my total cost at the bottom if I want to e-file the following local W-2s. So it'll walk you through all of that information before it asks to charge you. So it's going to ask me to log into my account because I did it that way, and it will want to charge me for those 1099s. I'm going to back out of it if it makes me put in the card information before we get to the end, but it looks like it's going to let us do it. So what will happen is it's going to let us do it, and at the end it's going to want us to log in to pay for those W-2s and all that filing, which I'm not going to do on our test data, but I just wanted to show you the screens that you'll go through if you do decide to do the e-filing. So here is our employer W-2. So 4 up on a page, there's a different employee per box. And I'm going to go to my next step. And it'll tell you what paper to put in. So it's telling me to put in that perforated paper. And I'm just going to X out of the printing just to move forward so that we can see it. The next one is going to be my federal W-2. And there it is. So that's what I would be sending to the government. I'm not going to print it right now. So my next one is going to be my W-3, my federal W-3 or 941 form. There it is. I'm not going to print it right now. And the next one's going to be my Michigan W-2. So my state W-2. There it is. Only one of my employees that I chose was in Michigan, so that's why there's only one employee there. I'm not going to print that right now. And the next is our Michigan 5081 report. So Atrix knows which reports per state have to be filed, and it's going to print those appropriately. Okay. You'll notice if there's something that you have to fill out. So it says, please complete required red fields. So there is some information for some forms that Sage 100 does not know the answer to, like it doesn't know how much you paid, etc. So I would go in here and put the appropriate information in those red fields. Once you do that, you can print it and move to your next step. I'm not going to print those right now. And then here's my Grand Rapids W-3 report. So Michigan also has a Grand Rapids filing, so that one is coming up. And we would have to fill out the information in red. Now this should come through. See how the tax withheld for these quarters come through? It didn't come through for these quarters because it's demo data and it doesn't have all the information. So I'm just going to put zeros in there to move forward. But you'll see that you would have to fill this out. You should have this information in there if you've had a full payroll year. Then this information will flow through. Okay, so you fill out anything in red that may not have come over from Sage, and then you move on and you can agree to that. And I'm going to say, no, I don't want to print it right now. So now at the end of this, I've gone through all my forms. I would have printed copies for myself. It's going to ask me, it's going to connect me to that Atrix eFile Center because it wants me to log into my Atrix account or create one and pay for my e-filing, essentially. So there you go. So you can log in here. If you need help with that, you can go to this, https://sage100atrix.com, to get your login information for login recovery or to create a new login. And then you would e-file from there. So I'm not going to obviously e-file at the moment. And it'll take me back here so that I could do it another way if I wanted to. All right, let me show you some, now that we walk through the technicalities of this, let me show you some resources that I have for you. So I put this URL in the presentation, and this is Sage 100 Year-End Center. So there's a lot of resources here for you to utilize. One of the things, if you look at reports and tax forms right here, you can see what forms do I use in Sage 100. How to purchase checks is going to take you to that Sage Checks form. Well, it's actually going to take you to a knowledge base article, and then you can go to sagechecks.com. When you go to sagechecks.com, if you go to tax and business forms, choose which forms you're looking for and choose your software on the left-hand side. So Sage 100 2016 and newer is what you would use. So that's there. And then if you want a checklist, so there are year-end checklists. So over on the right, if you click this, you can see a payroll and AP year-end checklist. This is where I got that payroll workflow from. I can print quarterly payroll report, how to print quarterly payroll reports. It's telling you to do that so that you can verify your information. Quarterly tax form and year-end updates. Show you all the details there. So you can just walk through this checklist, which is really nice as well. And then there is also an option about payroll period and year-end closing. So if you need any information about that, that's there as well. Product and tax updates. So you will see some tax updates coming up in here when they're available. So they're not available quite yet. And then there is like that payroll workflow that we went through that can take you directly there. You can go to your software updates over here. If you wanted to see acts and legislation, you can look there. I also found this this year, and I think this is new. You can go to year-end training. So if you go to year-end training, you can view training videos for year-end information as well directly from the page. So this is going to open Sage's YouTube channel and show you some different recordings that they have related to period end. So that's a good resource as well. So that's a good place to know. You can get to everything you need for year end directly from this Sage Community Hub Year End Center. So take note of that URL and use that when you're doing your processing. And of course, reach out to us if there's anything you need or you get stuck, and we're happy to help. So that is all of the information I have to share. So I think we'll pick it up with Courtney with questions.
Yes, thank you, Monica. That was a lot of great information, and we've definitely got some questions in the chat, so we can go ahead and dive into those. The first question I am going to start off with is, how do you back up your company in Sage 100?
That's a great question, very important. So in Sage 100, if you go to Library Master, Main, and Company Maintenance, backing up your company is essentially making a copy of it. So if I were to go into Company Maintenance and I have access to that with security, I can go ahead and I can back up my company. And in order to do that, I have to give it a company code. So a lot of times I might start it with B, and I'll say backup of PR2 at year end 2024. You do have to give it a company type here. So I'm going to say this is an archive. The reason that we give company types in Sage 100 is because there is security related to that so that a user cannot copy over an archive or a live company. So you want to kind of prevent that from happening. Then I would click copy, and then it'll tell me it has to be saved. I'm going to say yes. And I'm going to say, okay. And then you'll see it'll come up with my source company. So it's very important here to make sure that your source company is your live company and your destination company is your test company or your archive company. I've had people copy the wrong way before, so you don't want to do that. The key is when you go into company maintenance, you need to create your backup company code or choose your backup company code if it already exists, and then copy from your live company to your backup. When I say proceed, it'll ask me if I want to copy all the files. I say yes, and that's simple as that. I just made a backup. So now that company is available on my menu, you'll see here. And I could access it and it'll have the same data that's in my company as of right now. Great question.
Awesome. That is great to know. And also, I see a couple hands raised out there in the audience. If you're one of those people and you have a question, make sure you get your question into the Q&A portion, Q&A tab of GoToWebinar. So in your GoToWebinar panel, you have a Q&A section. So go ahead and get your question in there and I'll get it answered. Okay, keep going on, Monica. I got some more for you. So this one I think is two parts. So this one said, on the 1099, is the requirement for red box fields still in place for 2024 forms?
Oh, that's a great question. And I think I saw that on the website. So let's go back there. They have changed some of that. So if I go to reports and tax forms, I think it was under what forms do I need to file?
You're getting you with the hard questions today.
Yeah, that's okay. So yeah, it does say here exactly what's required. So you'll want to read through this to see if there are any. So it says Sage 100 requires blank 4-part perforated for the copies. So check that out carefully and that'll tell you specifically what you need and if the red is required. But I read that the red is not required any longer. So I think that's what you'll find when you read through all of that. Okay, there was a second part to that one?
This one is a demonstration. So they asked, can you demonstrate how to apply amounts into W-2 box 14, please? So box 14 of the W-2, they're looking to see how to apply amounts there.
Sure, let's look. So I'm going to go back into the forms itself. Let's go here. And I just want to see what it says for box 14 in here, and we'll look. I know that you could apply them in Atrix if they are not already applied in here. So let's just take a look. Oh, I only wanted to do it for a couple of employees. So this is going to bring up all my employees, and I'll have to delete some, which is fine. Only because this demo data doesn't have everything filled in properly. So let's take a look there. So I'm just going through the same things that we went through before. And I am going to, let me cancel this. I'm going to go back into that only because I need to choose just the 3 employees that are set up properly. So let me do that again. Okay, sorry about that. Oh, I gotta choose my form. Okay, we know. And now it should be good. It'll. So you'll notice I'm trying to go through here fast and it's telling me I didn't fill something in. So it will stop you if you don't fill something in, which is great. You can't miss, you can't miss something that's needed.
That's a nice feature there.
Mm-hmm.
And while we're waiting for this to load, I did have some questions in the chat, asking if this presentation will be available for reference. So yes, we will be sending out a copy of the recording of today's presentation tomorrow afternoon. It'll come from the same way you got your registration link for this webinar. So we will send the recording tomorrow afternoon, and we'll also include those links that Monica had in the presentation as well for easy access to the stage year end.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking for box 14 in here. Does the user who asked that question know what box 14 records?
Let's see if that was your question. They said apply amounts in W-2 box 14. So if you're out there, and you can let us know if you know.
Yeah, I don't see box 14 on here, so I can look into that further if you tell me what it's typically used.
They said housing. Someone said housing.
Housing? Okay.
Vehicle. We've got two. Box 14 vehicle, box 14 housing.
Like reimbursements? Okay, I'll find out. I'm not sure. I haven't seen that one before, so I'll find out. And I don't see it on the screen here, so I'm not sure where they put it.
Yeah, and if that's your question, and if you need some specific help around that, like I said, we'll have a survey will pop up when you exit the webinar. Just select that you want to have a conversation about it, and we will reach out to you to figure it out.
Yep.
Okay, and then another question we had come through is, you may have covered this, Monica, and this question may have come from before, but can you talk quickly about the process for signing up for e-file with Atrix?
Yes. So when you are in the screens here, and if we were to, go through all of these screens and get to the end again, if we chose the option to e-file, after we're done printing all of our forms, it will prompt you to log in to Atrix. If you don't have a login to Atrix, at the bottom of the screen, there's a URL that it'll have you go to, and then you'll be able to create an account on that web page.
Okay, great to know. Another question we had, this one, okay, sorry, going through the questions here, this one is also about information and getting the slides in the community hub. Mm-hmm. So yes, we will be sharing that information. This person said, when I go into my vendor maintenance and select a vendor that needs a W-2, this area is grayed out and I'm not able to select the W-2 box. Where should I look?
Great question. So that means that you don't have the 1099 functionality turned on in Sage. So let me go back to that, my AP company. So if you go into AP, setup and accounts payable option, there is a place to turn on 1099 reporting. It's a checkbox over here on the right. So that will have to be turned on and then you put in your default calendar year so it sets up the forms for you. And once that's turned on, you'll be able to, it won't be grayed out in vendor maintenance any longer, and you can add that. So that leads me to another little aside about that. If, it's the end of the year now and you haven't been calculating 1099 information all along. So if I set up this vendor at the beginning of the year as a 1099 vendor, then when I do invoices, it'll load those invoices into my 1099 history so that I have the totals for my 1099s. If you turn it on now and you want to do 2024 1099s, then you have to go into 1099 history and put the appropriate amount in there. It will automatically be in there. And then you'll be able to run your 1099s.
Great, awesome to know. Maybe when we can answer, Monica, do you know when someone should check for tax updates for the IRS with respect to 1099?
So, You can always check in payroll for tax updates. So when you go into payroll, there's a tax update area and you can check for tax updates, and it's in, I think, under utilities. And when you do that right here, it'll let you know if there's an update available. So you're going to be prompted if updates are available in Sage 100. However, there is something called an IRD, an interim release download, which is something that Sage provides at year end, and that will be released a little later this month. And that should be applied as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Back to, this might be our final one, so if you have a burning question, now is the moment to get it in. Back to the one we were just talking about with the vendor maintenance. The person who asked that question said that the box is selected, but it does not say 2024 for the year. Do you know why that might be?
Yeah, so it'll default, it may even default based on your year and period that you have AP in, so you can just change it to 2024.
Okay.
And if you change it,
Awesome.
you may get the prompt that says, do you want to create the forms based on whatever year it was before? And you can just say yes. And then Atrix will work out the form thing.
Okay, thank you. That is great to know. So if we want to go back to the slide deck here, I think that is all of our questions for today.
Okay.
So with that, we'll just go on. And yes, we want to say thank you for joining our Sage 100 Payroll 1099 year-end session. We will be sending out, like I said, we'll send out the recording of this. We'll also send out those links. Also, check your inbox next Tuesday. We are going to send you an email from SWK with all of the Sage 100 year-end resources you might need. So this recording, information in the deck, the links. We have our end of year blog that kind of pulls in all of our past resources. We do have others out there, pulls everything together for you and puts it in one place. So keep an eye out for that email next week. It'll have even more information than this webinar did. And we thank you all for joining us today and taking some time out of your busy day. And thank you, Monica, for sharing your expertise with us. If you need anything at all, you can let us know in that follow-up survey. You can reach out to your SWK rep, or you can always reach us at info@swktech.com. And check out our website, swktech.com. Like I said, in our blogs and our resources page, we have a ton of other Sage 100 related resources. Our YouTube channel has short videos that show you different tips and tricks, things like that, add-on solutions, wealth of knowledge out there on those social media channels. So thank you for joining us, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye, all.
Bye.